I keep saying it in all the Dogfight videos, but I really mean it. You've got a lot of choice this holiday season when it comes to buying an awesome smartphone. How's it going, guys? I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and in today's Dogfight, we're mixing it up a little bit when it comes to platforms and to ecosystems. In one hand, I've got the HTC Windows Phone 8X, also just known as the HTC 8X. It's packing some nice specs and brings Windows Phone 8 up into the playing field with Android and with iOS. It's packing a dual-core processor, an 8-megapixel camera, an HD display, 4G LTE connectivity, and more. And then you have the Sony Xperia TL. This is known as the James Bond phone. It's going to be featured in Skyfall, and it's packing a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core CPU, a 13-megapixel camera, a front-facing shooter, 4G LTE connectivity, and a really nice build quality. Which one's going to win the dogfight? Is it the James Bond phone or the 8X phone? We'll find out in the full dogfight, but first, special thanks to our partners at Best Buy Mobile for giving us devices like this, which we turn around and give to you for free at instantwin.phonedog.com. When you go into Best Buy Mobile, you'll walk out working with either of these devices. They'll help you set up your email, your camera settings, 4G LTE, and more. So when you walk out the door, you're provisioned, you're configured, and you're good to go at Best Buy Mobile. Let's take a look. 8X, Xperia TL. It's dogfight time. Let's take a look, starting right now. You know what? You get a lot of choice to choose from this holiday season. I've said that in a couple of videos, and the case is true even right here. You've got two devices very different across the spectrum, different hardware, different manufacturers, obviously, and different operating systems as well. You got Windows Phone 8 versus Android, which I think between this and iOS, these are the three mobile operating systems of the holiday 2012 shopping season. So it's important to take a look at these videos and see what's most important to you. Maybe live tiles are your thing. Windows Phone 8 is going to be awesome, and they made some great improvements, as you can see here, with the different sized customizable tiles, as opposed to over here where you don't have tiles, but what you do get on Android is widgets. And arguably Android 4.0 and up, huge improvements. So if you've played with an Android device like a Froyo device or a Gingerbread based device, huge difference here. Throw it out and take a look at this. Well, I wouldn't say literally throw it out. I would say buy another device first and then recycle it. But take a look at Android 4.0 and up, because huge changes to the Android platform between Android 4.0 and Android 4.2 now, which is also known as Jelly Bean in the Android circles as a code name. So you've got two devices here, the HTC Windows Phone 8X over here, also known as just the 8X. Windows Phone 8X is the full name, but this thing is coming soon to AT&T, coming soon to Verizon and T-Mobile, and it's packing some pretty awesome specs as well. It's got a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 CPU, a 4.3-inch HD display, an 8-megapixel camera on the back with 1080p HD video recording. It's got a 1,800 milliamp hour non-removable battery, but they're really trying to spice up Windows Phone a little bit, and this is one of those launch devices. It's going to come out alongside the Lumia 920, which is made by Nokia, the Lumia 820, and there are some variants of this phone. For example, the Lumia 822 is Verizon's phone, the Lumia 810 is T-Mobile's phone, and then you're going to see the Samsung Ativ S and Samsung Ativ Odyssey, which is the Verizon branded version that's coming this holiday season. So you've got kind of a smattering of Windows Phone devices coming as launch devices. They've really spiced them up, added some nice colors here, beautifully thin, and on this one, for example, you got a volume rocker on the right side, camera shortcut button on the right side, on the left side, nothing, micro USB charging port at the bottom, as you can see there, and then up top, you got your 3.5 millimeter headphone jack and a power button as well, and a pretty nice blue, kind of blue, almost purple. It's got kind of a purple hue to it to me, but pretty blue look and feel here with AT&T logo and 4G LTE connectivity on AT&T. It'll also have LTE on Verizon, and we'll have HSPA Plus on T-Mobile. Then you have this. This is the Sony Xperia TL. This is the James Bond phone. You're going to see this phone prominently displayed in Skyfall, which is the James Bond movie that actually comes out this week. If you ever wondered what kind of phone James Bond carried, well, James Bond carries an Android phone. They solved that one for us. At least Daniel Craig, as a persona in a movie, carries an Android phone. Who knows what he actually carries in real life? But packing a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 Plus CPU. You've got a 1,850 milliamp hour battery, also non-removable here, but you've got some pretty nice specs. And again, keeping in mind that both of these devices are $100, gone are the days where you feel like you have to spend $200 or $300 to get a good device. Let's say, you know what, you're tight on cash, you bought your friends and family a ton of awesome gifts, you splurged on them, you're getting around to yourself, and you're like, you know what, I really don't want to spend $200. These can be some awesome devices for you all around. Like I said, 1850 milliamp hour battery here, got a 4.55 inch HD display here. You've got Android 4.0 with Sony's Timescape user interface, which we'll talk about later in the video. A 13 megapixel camera with 1080p HD video recording, and then a nice build quality, nice svelte body here with a micro USB charging port on the left side. On the right side, your power button, volume rocker, and camera shortcut all kind of lined up together there. And then a slot here for your micro SD card, and of course your micro SIM card slot, both of which go right down in there. 3.5mm headphone jack up top, and then of course a front-facing camera on both of these devices as well. So you got some nice features here. Windows Phone 8 really stepping it up. So if you looked at Windows Phone 7, you're like, you know what, it's too basic for me. Take a look at Windows Phone 8 again, because they're definitely going for simplicity. Again, I mean, that's really the core platform of Windows Phone, is to get in, and they've marketed this before in campaigns. It's to get in and get out as quickly as possible, and they're really kind of carrying that theme into Windows Phone 8. Now that said, they've made some great customization improvements on this device. I want to just talk about those for just a second. First of all, you're going to see some changes with the accent colors. You know, a common criticism of Windows Phone 7, and it was even made by me, was that when it came to customization, there really was little to no customization on this device. And don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of things that I'd like to see in Windows Phone 8. That said, I'd love to see some backgrounds, for example, where instead of the black screen, you could do a background behind the tiles. But that said, you've got some nice new color choices here. For example, I can come in here and take a look at olive. I can come in here and change it to mauve. I can change it in here to steel. I've got a bunch of different colors outside of kind of the typical orange, red, blue, green color schemes. I've got a bunch of different choices there in comparison to what I had in Windows Phone 7. Also, something you're going to notice is these customizable tiles. This is something I nailed Windows Phone 7 on. I was like, you know what? And if you remember back to Windows Phone 7, the calendar tile out of the gate was rectangular, just like the photos tile, as you can see here. What was great about that is, like you see here, you see some shortcuts and you see some preview links, or previews I should say, to your calendar appointments. So let's say OSR weekly recap video. I can see that. Well, I can see a case for that when it comes to email. I can come in here, for example, press and hold, and then I can come over here and kind of adjust the size of the widget, or the live tile itself. So for example, if I want to make the messaging a full rectangle, I can make it a full rectangle and go in just like that. And the beautiful thing about this is a preview will pop up now on the messaging tile. So they're really, really enhancing this. And for example, if I want to make it the original size, I can do that. Or if I want to make it smaller, I can make it smaller. So you really see some customization choices here. You can really make your home screen your own. I can come around here, for example, I can move my people tile over here and shift those other four around. I can come down here and shift these around. I've got a lot of different choices here. I can make them as small or as large as I want to, and really make this device my own. So that level of personalization is huge. They've also made some changes to the lock screen, but before I get too far into that, I really want to underscore how important this is, because you see with emails, with messaging, my complaint about Windows Phone 7 is you couldn't see previews when it came to text message. Now you can see those previews if you have the rectangular live tile displayed. A huge improvement there all around, and really aids and kind of enhances the personalization features of this device. Now we're going to skip over to this one really quickly and talk about it for a little bit here. Now this has Sony's Timescape user interface running atop Android 4.0, also known as Ice Cream Sandwich. So you know what, they've done some great improvements here. There are some customizations. It's a little bit different to use, particularly if you're used to HTC Sense version 4, or you're used to TouchWiz, or to a lesser extent you're used to LG's user interface or Motorola's user interface. There are some differences here. For example, when you press and hold, you're going to see wallpaper and theme choices, and then you're going to see this as well, where you can come in here and hit plus and go over here to, let's say, you know what, AT&T traffic or calendar. Actually, we'll add a widget just like this, calendar, and then it pops it right down here on one of my home screens. I can kind of customize the size because this is a stock Android widget. Now I've got 5 home screens here, but when I press and hold and kind of zoom these out, I can play around with the different widgets on the display. I can come down here, like you see here, kind of play around with the different calendar widgets and kind of different clock widgets and more. They're kind of floating up there in air, and take a look at those all at once. So that's a nice little touch right there. And a notifications bar, you're going to see some great shortcuts up here on the top. I installed Yelp a minute ago, as you can see there. But I've got some shortcuts to turn data on and off, to turn sound on and off, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, the commonly used things, along with my settings here. So it's going to have kind of a familiar look and feel if you've worked with a Sony device in the past. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, data usage shortcuts there, call settings, sound and display. And when it comes to customization, I'd like to see maybe a little bit more customization, but it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. For example, pressing and holding here, you can see I can add my widgets just by pressing that. I can change the theme around. So let's say this purple color isn't really your thing. We'll come in here and change it to the Skyfall theme, which again, this phone is very themed towards James Bond, because again, this is the launch device and they're partnering with the Skyfall movie to promote the Xperia TL. So again, for $100, you get this. And of course you get all this stuff on it with Skyfall, for example. The background, as you can see here, you get a couple of other ones. I'm going to wallpaper and take a look at Xperia wallpapers. You're going to see this one with Daniel Craig. And of course you'll see the typical 007 Gold Girl, if you will. And then I've got some standard wallpapers. If you know what, James Bond is just too much for you, you want a standard Sony wallpaper, you've got that case right there where you can add that. and of course some folders as well. AT&T stuff comes pre-installed on both of these devices, as you can see here. Code scanner, family map, navigator, radio, UVerse, kind of same over here. Code scanner, family map, locker, navigator, ready to go. And when I want to uninstall those, I can click right here. Unfortunately, the AT&T stuff can't be uninstalled, but as you can see, I can uninstall Astro, Office Suite, Quadrant Standard, Speed Test, Yelp, the stuff that I've installed. But I like that this button is right here where you can easily do it. You can easily remove or add stuff, and then you can organize in your own order, alphabetical, most used, or recently installed as well, so you can really kind of customize the applications drawer and make it your own all around. Now, you'll see that I've installed Chrome. We'll take a look at the browsers as well on both of these devices, but first I want to show you what I was saying about the lock screen here. They made some improvements to the lock screen all around, and we'll come in here and take a look. Now, the background is what I like the most. For example, in Windows Phone 7, you had the ability to change the photo, and that's really it. You could only change the photo. Now they have Bing and HTC integration, and they're going to have some great integration in the future with Facebook, Groupon, and a couple of other applications where, for example, you can set Facebook as your background, and it'll automatically rotate out of pictures that matter to you. So if you got a photo album rather, it'll rotate out between those, so you know what, you turn your phone off and back on, you'll never quite know which picture is going to display. So it'll show it, kind of mix it up a little bit so you don't see that same boring picture every single time. But here's the HTC one so you can see what it looks like. Again, very similar elements here to Sense. We're familiar with HTC's user interface, kind of has that similar look and feel. You can see Dallas weather here, the clock, but you can see kind of a live tile, if you will, or live wallpaper behind it of what the weather is actually doing. So obviously it's mostly sunny right now in Dallas, so you can see the sun's out, and I can go right back in. And of course I can change that to photo or to Bing if I so desire and access both of those from the lock screen. But another thing I really like, we'll go back into settings here so you take a look. Let's go back into lock screen. You can do a couple of different things. You can choose your apps to show quick status, and those are those little application shortcuts that pop up on the lock screen. No real difference there. You can come in here and say, you know what, I don't really want games. I can choose none. I can make that something else if I wanted to, or I can mix them around and have phone, for example, show up over there if I wanted to. But this one's pretty cool. You can choose an app to show detailed status. So I have my phone doc email account set up, so whenever somebody emails me at a work email address, or my work email address rather, it pops up as that preview in that space below the clock but above the notifications. Now let's say, you know what, messaging is most important to me. Text messaging is where it's at. I can click that and I can go back out here, and when I get a text message, that'll be the preview that pops up down here below the clock. So you can kind of customize it again. Still kind of lagging behind Android in terms of customization, but they are giving you some options to make this device your own. And again, here's HTC's widget as well, where I can go in and see the weather, I can see stocks and news and more, thanks to HTC's Hub widget, which actually they're just referring to now as HTC, no longer being called HTC Hub or anything relative to HTC Sense, just being called HTC. Let's take a look at the browser. Actually, you know what, before we take a look at the browser, let's take a look at messaging on both of these devices, because that is something worth taking a look at on both. And I also want to show you NFC integration on both of these devices, because you do have the NFC tags on both, and that's something that's going to be huge, I think, in months and years to come. And we'll load up here. What we're going to do, oh, text messaging, that's right. Load up text messaging here and take a look at both of these devices. So you can see the interface here, obviously a little bit different all around. You've got Microsoft's keyboard over here, Windows Phone 8 stock keyboard. Then you have a couple of different choices over here. You have the Xperia keyboard, you have the Chinese keyboard, the Japanese keyboard, and then you have Android keyboard as well. So the stock Android 4.0 keyboard, as you can see there. But I'm actually pretty impressed with Sony's keyboard. I didn't like it. If you go back to the older Xperia devices, didn't care for it in the slightest, but I'm really impressed with it all around this time. Quick Brown Fox is happy that it is almost time to go home and Homeland, that's a good show. Home and eat. Quick Brown Fox is happy that it's almost time to go home and eat. Portrait to landscape transitions nice and fast. Now don't get me wrong, a 4.5-inch display. This thing is really fast. Dual-core processor, a Snapdragon S4 processor. It's going to give you some great performance for $100, and I just can't get over the fact that both of these devices are available in the holiday season for $100. Definitely going to be great for a lot of people. I think a lot of people are really going to be attracted to the build quality of this. A lot of people are really going to be attracted, obviously, to the 007 features, and I shouldn't say features, 007 advertising by this device, and of course the fact that it's a nice Android device that packs a lot of specs for under $100. But we'll say the same thing over here. Quick Brown Fox, what did I say, is happy that it is almost time to go home and eat. So you got a 4.3-inch display over here, 4.55-inch display. Portrait to landscape transitions are nice and fast over here, but this is still something that irks me to no end on Windows Phone 8. They did this on Windows Phone 7 as well. They need to get rid of these buttons here and get rid of this dead space over here and make the keyboard longer so I can use the full 4.3-inch display. See what I'm saying here, where no matter what you do, these keys are still too small to me, even in landscape mode. They could really stretch this out and get rid of the side buttons here, make those available in portrait only. And granted, the transitions are nice and fast, but you can see a ton of just dead space that I think they could really do a better job at. But what I do like, the keyboard is nice. Even at 4.3 inches, this thing is relatively easy to type on, and of course I can automatically change the words just by clicking over here. And then of course I can go in here and take a look. It doesn't give me the ability to highlight the word, but I can come in, for example, about time to go homey and eat. Most time and way. So you can see I can change those as well. So that's not a feature exclusive to Windows Phone 8 by any means, but I like the implementation here where I click it and it's like, oh, do you want to copy that? Yeah, I want to copy that. We'll go down here and paste it. So I actually like the copy-paste implementation in Windows Phone 8 quite a bit. We'll take a quick look at the browser as well. We're going to load up phonedog.com. On both of these devices, LTE, 4G LTE on both of these devices, and we'll load up phonedog.com over here. Stay tuned for part 2, because we're going to take a look at the speed and performance of the web browser.